Hello, happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to the chat. I'm Catalina Alurs. We have Henny, Bonnie, and Angie joining the panel today, and we're also joined by special guest host, retired FBI special agent and criminology professor at UNF, Ellen Glasser.
Welcome to the chat.
Welcome. We are really excited to have you here. Exactly.
We
so
got
before
some
we get
stuff
started,
to talk about.
Girl, yes, we
Ooh,
do.
Spill the tea.
So before we get started, Ellen, you know former FBI Director James Comey professionally. So what has it been like watching the hearing with that kind of information, having worked with him before?
Well, watching the hearing was emotional for me because I was really anxious to see how he was going to handle the high-pressure environment. But I've known him since 2013, and so I've sort of watched this whole
look at your picture.
Pattern.
Wow, he's tall.
Yeah.
How tall is he? Or were you on your knees or something?
No. This is something that he's had to deal with every day. He's at least 6'7", and he's referred to himself as a giraffe in my presence before.
Nice.
I think he needs to really travel with a little stool so
Yeah.
that people can stand up
next to him.
Welcome to my husband's world.
I look like his daughter. So, anyway.
He's the kind of guy that has to duck under doorways everywhere he goes.
Yes,
That's
yes.
awesome.
So have you ever seen anything get this much attention in this country?
Well, in recent history, no. I was in the FBI as an agent for 24 years, and the only thing that comes remotely close was in the mid-'80s when I was working on the Iran-Contra investigation. President Reagan was in office at the time, and it had to do with the hostages in Iran and trading arms for hostages with Nicaragua. I'm not going to get into the details of it, but we had an independent counsel, a special prosecutor that was assigned to that case, and it was very highly charged, but really nothing on the order of this. You know, the news cycle is 24/7 now. We have a really flamboyant president who tweets a lot, and my colleagues and everybody is getting engaged in, you know, who's right, who's not right. So, no, nothing quite like this.
I mean, everyone was kind of glued to the stream yesterday as it was happening.
It really was.
I hadn't seen it. I mean, some of my, because millennials, the only thing that we kind of remember similar to that is like the O.J. Simpson trial, where everyone was tuned into a TV. So yesterday, that was the first time that really anyone my age has seen that kind of attention to a story.
It was
Well,
serious.
I'm going to say that most people never know the name of the FBI director. And the fact that his name is known is an indication of how sort of crazy this is.
Oh, yeah.
So, Ellen, what would you say it was your final takeaway of the testimony yesterday?
Well, I'm going to start with the good and then go to the bad. The good is that it was really American government on display.
Yes.
You know, we see a lot of people sort of yelling and screaming and referring to people in stereotypical terms. But yesterday, the senators on both sides of the aisle were very respectful and civil. They maintained order. They stayed within the time limits they were supposed to. And I thought that there was a lot to be learned by that for people that were maybe watching this sort of thing for the very first time. It was an excellent civics lesson, so that's the good. The bad is that we looked at Director Comey's testimony before he came to the hearing, so that was already a matter of public record. But he came out with guns blazing. I mean, he started by saying that the president was a liar. And by speaking to the FBI workforce because of the way that he was terminated, he couldn't say goodbye. And really speaking in really harsh terms, which I think he did purposefully. So that we're going to learn about a lot more in the days, weeks, months, years to come.
I'm sure.
But I think it was very calculated how he came out and talked about Trump's treatment of him.
I thought it was very bold of him to call President Trump a liar. I can't remember anyone who's gone public, anyone in a position like his, to go publicly calling the President of the United States a liar. That took a lot of guts.
I think it was stupid.
Well, I don't know if it's guts or not. I mean, I think that he did it for a reason, and that's because I think it's important to look at the whole, all of the events together in order to draw conclusions. But today we look at things in terms of sound bites. And so Director Comey called him a liar, and then when the hearing was over, Trump called Comey a liar. So it's really a strange place for the chief law enforcement officer in America to be having a conversation.
Even engage.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Well, speaking of sound bites, we want to get a look at at the reaction from both sides. So here's a look at how some representatives responded.
The president's new at this. He's new to government. And so he probably wasn't steeped in the long-running protocols.
It's pretty clear that there was an attempt by the president to manipulate the director of the FBI.
Now, are both of them, is it fair to say that what they're saying is fair?
Can I just say something about Paul Ryan? I mean, really, I want to say to Paul, hey, Paul, you had several months to bring him up to speed. You know, I mean, I think he was stretching on that one.
I think that he acts a lot more like a civilian in business quite often. And I actually agree wholeheartedly.
But do we want someone making excuses for the president, saying, oh, he doesn't really know what he's doing yet? That doesn't give me any kind of confidence that he knows what he's doing, because he's got someone saying that he doesn't quite get how everything works yet.
I'm not used to seeing that kind of a response, so it was really hard for me to really make sense of it.
Agreed.
And he's responding to the testimony right after the fact. He probably would have said something a little bit differently if he'd had a chance to think about it. But to say he's new, he's got the nuclear codes.
Yeah. So now, of course, the Democrats are calling for the president to testify. What do you think are the chances of that really happening?
Zero.
And the reason I think the chances are small, and I go back to my own experience with this case decades ago, is that when you have a special counsel that's been named to investigate, that person is going to be wanting to bring in the president and maybe depose him and get the information in the context of an investigation. I think the chances of him testifying on the Hill are pretty remote.
But we can definitely still expect him to tweet and comment on the situation. I mean,
sure. Why would he not? Why would he not continue to do that?
But is that would you consider that a dangerous thing for him to be able to comment on however he wants and sort of control his own narrative on this specific investigation, as opposed to having him come in and sit on the committee and being interrogated?
Let me just say that tweeting serves a purpose of letting the public know what's going on, and people really want to hear that information, but it is not how we do things in law enforcement. I mean, we take a no comment approach on cases that we work. We sort of live and die by that. So to have the bits and pieces of this get out to the public through tweets is just such a
well, it's part of the
unsettling thing.
And it's part of the critique about Comey's testimony, too, is that he leaked information, whether it was confidential or whether it just goes against protocol.
So what do you think about that? What do you think about that? Because Comey owned everything that he said, and he didn't seem like he was concerned about saying something that
he was very confident.
Well, because of this way,
but he proved himself too. I mean,
is it wrong for him to leak?
Well, let me say, you have a constitutional right to provide information that you think will aid the public safety. Let's bear in mind, and I'm a fan of Jim Comey, I'll disclose that bias. I think he is a man of deep integrity. I think his motives were honorable. I don't think that the display yesterday was about him personally getting revenge. The way he described that tweet about having tapes, that there were tapes, he saw that as an opportunity to get evidence. And so what he said, and again, I think it was very calculated how he testified, he wanted to get that out first. Talk about the fact that he had taken the notes and the memos. So he's a former United States attorney, former deputy attorney general. He got advice from a Columbia law professor before he provided that information to the news media, and he said that he did it so that a special prosecutor, a special counsel would be named.
Which did happen.
I'm just going to say, I am not a lawyer, but if that was the thinking when he decided to provide that information and he thought it was for some public safety benefit, then I'm going to say let's wait and see how this plays out. I am not going to criticize that as a leak or something that was not appropriate, because that man's a whole lot smarter than I am, and he had a lot of advice, so I just don't know. It was very unorthodox. Never seen anything like it before. And frankly, when I heard that he took notes, I'm thinking, okay, when would I do that? I mean, think of yourself in a situation when something happens and you think it's a little weird.
You want a paper trail.
Yeah, so,
you know,
but he also said he hadn't done that in the past. So I'm thinking maybe
President
that's
Bush nor Obama. He never had to do that.
I was thinking it was a common practice, but he said it wasn't. I mean, he put it all out there. So,
well, for people who are still thinking that it doesn't matter that Donald Trump is still in the right, I mean, would it be like, well, he said he took notes? Well, Trump could take notes too and say, well, this isn't what happened. I mean, is it the fact that Comey's reputation is so high that probably goes against leaving Donald Trump, or what?
I mean, I've checked message boards from people that I work with that are private, and he's taken some hits about the Lordy, I hope there are tapes thing. That's a very
I love that, though.
They want to find something with anything.
It's a very folksy kind of a reference. That is kind of the way he is. He's a storyteller. But the fact that there could have been tapes changes the game in terms of whether there are notes, who takes them, whatever.
You don't think those things are burned up by now?
Who knows?
Come on.
But really quickly, what happens next?
Say.
Now that we've had the questioning, what happens now? What are we waiting for?
Well, I think we're going to see legal analysis in terms of whether Director Comey, broke some law to provide the content of the memos. I suspect that's going to go in his favor based on what I said already. So we'll be talking about that. We're going to be talking about whether there's an obstruction of justice case. Again, I don't think that a case was made for President Trump obstructing justice yesterday.
MSNBC thought otherwise last night.
Of course they did. Please, really.
Just saying.
Well, to make an obstruction case, you're going to have to demonstrate that there was some sort of corrupt intent. And somebody tweeting
no evidence,
or President Trump having a New York City style conversation with Director Comey, I don't think it's there. But I could be wrong. But that will be played out ad nauseum,
and we'll be glued to it.
And then the special counsel investigation is going to be much more methodical, much more behind the scenes, and that's going to take some time.
And we'll all be glued to it together. All right. Well, we got to take a quick break, but we've got to talk more about Ellen with Ellen when we come back.